Hey, everybody.
What's going on, Ben? Hey, welcome, everybody. We are here live. We're excited. This is an exciting time. Ben is live at World of Work, and we're going to be having some incredible conversations today, talking about all things strategies for building a human-first compensation practice. And Ben, how are you doing? This is incredible. I'm at home in my wonderful compounds, and you're on the streets. You're in the conference on another side of the world in beautiful state of Texas. How you feeling, my friend?
Man, I'm having a great time. I am slightly waterlogged. They've brought the rain for us this week, so that's been interesting, but having a lot of fun, meeting a lot of people, having some great conversations about how do we see the best in our people, drive the right behaviors, use pay as one of the tools we use to do that. We'll talk more about that in the conversations today. But George, I love a chance to help all of our friends out there, many of them who are HR leaders who have to do comp in addition to everything else. And so I love being able to take them for a deep dive into some of the strategies, best practices, opportunities to do that well. And we're going to definitely spend some time to do that today. So excited, man.
Awesome. We got so many people just joining us live right now. Listen, it's going to be a credible time. Make sure you're having that conversation. We appreciate everybody. Shouts out the welcomes from Georgia, Maryland, Illinois, Florida. So far, that's in the chat. Make sure that you welcome yourself, enjoy yourself, put your name in the chat. Let us know where you're coming from, and we're excited about that. Ben, real quickly, because we got an incredible day planned here in the next 90 minutes, and don't want to waste any time. We got a wonderful panel coming up. We got some men on the street videos that you've done live there at World of Work, and going to end it with a great conversation as well at the end. And so just real quickly, as always, we love to go over a few announcements and just some house news, if you will. As always, when it comes to Lighthouse virtual events, we're always going to give away. If Ben Eubanks is involved, there's going to be giveaways involved. And so we want you to stay engaged. Share this with your network. If you're watching on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, wherever you may be watching, we would love for you not only just to like, comment, but also share with your network. For those who may be in compensation as well, this could be some great insights, and maybe some data will come out of Ben's mouth. It'd be shocking if it didn't. Also, at the end of the video, this has been approved for 1.5 hours of SHRM and HRCI credits. And so we'll show that at the end of the stream. So stay tuned to that. You'll be able to get that as well. And live stream times are approximate. And we'll have different options. Ben is live on the expo floor there, so you may hear some background noises, some music. You may hear somebody or see somebody walking right behind him, and we're hoping and crossing our fingers that all the Wi-Fi and all those things work, and we'll stay connected as well. But if anything happens, we'll be back and better than ever on that aspect as well. Just real quickly, a wonderful speaker lineup that we have. We're going to have a great panel where Ben's going to be sitting down with our panel with Jennifer and Ruth. It's going to be a great conversation, as well as Megan. And so we got those incredible people. Ben, again, is going to have some men on the street videos. We got one. They're going to go right after the panel with Lexi, and that's going to be something that you'll want to chime in and join on too. As we mentioned, keynote, the secret of solving the most compensation promise. That's going to be with Jennifer. And then Megan as well, Megan Morris from Assurance. And then after that, we'll have a Men on the Street video. And then we're going to talk a little bit with pay scale. Ruth Thomas is going to be joining us, and we'll have a wonderful wrap up at the end of that as well. Just so you know, all the comments, questions that may come in, we're looking for 6 incredible people that's engaged, that's sharing this stream. We're going to pick 6 lovely people to give away this incredible book, A Greater Goal. Ben, you talked a little bit about this. You actually introduced me to this book. And what it meant and why you thought it was so valuable that this is going to be one of our giveaways today. And why is that? What is it about this book that really impacted you?
It is not the fact that I'm a youth soccer coach that brought this one in, by the way. So actually, if you followed the story in the news over the last couple of years, the U.S. women's soccer team kept bringing up the fact that they were being underpaid relative to their male counterparts. And they started this campaign to advocate for fair pay. They said, listen, we're playing just as hard, we're practicing just as hard, we're working out, we're doing all these things. Give us the chance to earn a fair wage. And so it tells their story of how they fought for that. And number one, it's an incredible story. But number two, any employer that's trying to figure out how do we bring this to the forefront in a way that respects all the other accomplishments everybody else is bringing to the table, that sees the culture we're in, everything else, and gives us some ideas on how to make that happen and the tenacity that's necessary. So that's an incredible story that tells that. I was actually commenting on this. We're going to give some away based on people that commented on this post on LinkedIn in advance. And some of the people, I was telling some of them that I'm actually going to read this with my daughters to tell them this story, because I don't want the first time they find out that the world's not exactly a fair place. And again, Ruth and I'll talk about that a little bit later on, that I don't want them to find out first time by themselves. I want to be there alongside as a guide. So that's what we can expect. It's going to be really fun. And speaking of man on the street, George, I actually have a man. We're not on the street literally, but we're close enough. We're going to take it. And I want to bring Alan in here with me. Alan Mellish is a friend of mine. I've known him for years. Alan, glad you're here, man. Welcome.
Yeah, good to be here. I'm here on behalf of Achieve Engagement and kind of covering the conference from not just a compensation side of things, but a whole total rewards perspective, and how that's motivating, being used to motivate and encourage and retain and help people do their best work. So yeah, excited to be here. Glad to hook up with Ben as always.
Well, I was going to ask you really quickly for the audience's benefit, because you do work similar to me, right? You're an analyst. You watch the market. You talk to technology companies. You talk to leaders like the ones who are tuned into the stream today, and you try to make sense of all that and then share something back that we can all learn from. So I'm hoping I can tap into a little bit of that wisdom here. No pressure, okay? But you've been here at the conference for about 24 hours, soaking in conversations. Every time I see you, you're talking to somebody else. What's a big theme or a big trend, something that you're seeing that you're excited about, curious about, or think that will be helpful to the audience?
Absolutely. So I think anybody who is either got a significant portion of their workforce that is frontline or deskless, that, we're talking hospitals, we're talking factory workers, we're talking retail, hospitality, any of that stuff. The market in terms of rewards and recognition is already making a big shift towards you, but everybody's trying to get on board on this opportunity, because they know that this is a population that's been historically underserved. And with the increased, ubiquity of mobile devices, both personal devices and devices at work that are on flat factory floors, Amazon warehouses, and all of that, there's a huge opportunity to recognize and engage people in that way and communicate with your people a lot better. And also it benefits the employer, not just in the engagement benefit side of things, but you're getting great data on how people are doing, who's recognizing what's happening. You're getting organizational network analysis on a massive scale potentially. And so that's a big opportunity. I would advise everybody to be looking at if that's a big part of their workforce. The other thing I'm seeing is obviously AI is a thing.
This AI, I've heard of AI.
Yes, yeah, and it's not just the the upgraded Flippy chatbot guy. It's it's being used in a whole bunch of different ways, and part of the problem for the consumer or the analyst in this case is to kind of suss out, like, okay, who's the real deal, who's white labeling Claude or ChatGPT, and just trying to get something good enough to get your money and get the contract. And so one of the things we're seeing is that you got to ask some questions up front, like, where is the data coming? How is this thing being trained? Who is actually in the human in the loop on the vendor side of it, the solution provider? How are they using it? Do they have the expertise and the people in place to make sure that things are happening? And especially that matters from a compensation side of things, because that is one of the fastest ways to get sued, is screw something up on comp. And say that, AI did it is not going to be an acceptable answer.
No, that's not going to get you there at all. So really, really great insight. Thank you for hanging out. Absolutely. Alan, appreciate you absolutely for being here with us. When you see the Man on the Street interview in a little bit, Alan's the one who shot that. So bless him for that one. Thank you so much. Appreciate you, man. If you're hearing that awesome voice in the background, by the way, when Alan was talking about how do you train the data, what sort of things go into the AI, how do we make sure that it's doing the right things as guardrails, that's actually Sarah Hillenmeyer. She's on the PayScale team for data science, AI, all those things. She is brilliant. And she was talking about this yesterday, and I don't usually get sucked into like a booth demo, and I got sucked in and I couldn't leave because she was talking about some of those things. So great conversation. I'm so excited, George. We're going to jump over to our keynote panel now, where we're going to hear from Megan. We're going to hear from Jennifer. These two different compensation leaders from two very different organizations. It's so much fun for me to hear them talking about the separate issues they're facing, but you will see the moment during the conversation where they both latch onto the same idea saying, yes, we are dealing with that. And for me, that's the part where the conversation really takes off. You'll see that happen, I think. I feel the energy in it when we do. These two organizations are both PayCL customers. So thanks to the team, Jessica and the crew over there, for making sure we got connected to them. We appreciate them so much. So George, I'm gonna let you push that one live. After that, we'll come back together and I'm gonna have an interview live right here with Ruth Thomas. And we're gonna talk about some of the new trends, new data around comp. All of you that are thinking about end of year, what's that going to look like this year, she'll give you a preview of what to expect. Welcome to our opening session today. I'm so glad you're here with us. Looking forward to diving into the intricacies of comp, some of the fun things that are happening there, some of the challenging things that are happening there, a little bit of everything under the sun, really exploring the depths of this. I have not one, but two incredible panelists here with me. I'm so excited that Jennifer and Megan are here. We're going to dive into this conversation. Ladies, welcome. Glad that you're here with us. So before we get into some of the fun stuff we're talking about, I'm going to let each of you introduce yourself really quick to the audience. So they know more about who you are, what you do, what's behind the things that you're sharing about. So Jennifer, why don't you start us off? Tell us more about who you are, what you do, please.
So I'm the head of the Compensation Center of Expertise for Franciscan Health, which is a large healthcare system based in Indiana. I'm responsible for system-wide compensation strategy, governance, and program design across all employee groups, so executive, leaders, providers, and frontline coworkers. Think of the healthcare system, an ecosystem. We have an IT group, we have like insurance groups, we have a plethora of different kind of pay programs that all have to exist in one system. So my role really sits at the intersection of market competitiveness, internal equity, and really that financial stewardship. So in practice, that means building structures and guardrails and decision frameworks that ensure that we make consistent, defensible pay decisions across the entire organization. So I'm really a person who looks forward and does that search for not just the moments of urgency, but looking for how we can maintain comp across the full life cycle of employment.
That's fun. So glad to hear. Megan, tell us your story.
So my name is Megan Morris. I am located in Huntsville, Alabama. I'm a director of compensation at Assurant. We are a financial services and insurance company. I am part of a pretty decent sized compensation team. We're one of 3 directors, and we also have some other total rewards leaders above us. But our primary role is partnership. We partner with HR or people business partners, we partner with finance, and we are also global. So we're partnering with our global partners as well. A lot of what Jennifer said resonates. We are very much in the space of ensuring compliance, financial stewardship, all of that, while juggling all of the regulatory and everything else going on in the space. So
I don't know that professional juggling is like a skill that's in a comp job description, but it feels like it should be based on having to keep all the different balls in the air at the same time. That feels like it's very relevant. Probably people in the audience too, they appreciate that. So let's start off with something fun. So Jennifer, I'm gonna start with you. What is something that you or your team have done or accomplished in the last year that you're proud of?
So we got to take it like a few years back, honestly, because healthcare has been really interesting coming out of, obviously, everybody's still dealing with that pandemic era environment. And I hate that I have to say that, but it's been very reactive, right? We're short staffed still in the healthcare world. And I'm sure a lot of industries are facing the same thing. But this past year, we've made significant shift from being that reactive compensation decision making to being more proactive, a governance system. So we've put in a lot of governance. One of the biggest accomplishments was finally formalizing that quarterly benchmarking cadence, revealing 3,000 jobs descriptions across the year, which allow us to identify the market misalignment before it becomes that larger issue. And like I said, at the same time, we've built out a formal compensation governance framework. We finally defined our philosophy, translating it into policies, clarifying decision authority. And I think that was the biggest thing, because compensation, like you said, we've been juggling it. And clarifying that decision authority has really been light years a step ahead. And that work has been less visible to our company employees, but we're trying to bring it to that forefront. And in the long story short, I mean, at the end of the day, it's about building a system that holds over time, not just solving for today. And I think we're light years ahead of where we were just in this past year.
That's so encouraging, honestly. And you and I have not met before this, but one of the themes for some of our different training and teaching over the last year was really moving from reactive to proactive. Right? Not just being a fire extinguisher, but having a fire prevention plan, essentially, was the big theme for us over the last year. And so it's encouraging to hear that, hey, we synced up around that. And that's been a big focus for you and the team. It's really easy. Let's go into the juggling metaphor, right? It's one thing to say, yes, I'm keeping things going because nothing's changing. But something's always changing. You just listed a couple of them that are changing constantly. And to be able to try to keep that going, knowing that, hey, in a minute, I'm juggling these balls. Someone's going to throw a kitchen knife in there or whatever else. I'm like, oh, gosh. Okay, maybe the metaphor went too far, but like, that's scary. That's really tough to try to keep those things going. So, Megan, what's your story? What's something that you or the team have accomplished that you're proud of?
Yeah, sure. So I think our story kind of goes back a couple of years as well. We've been on this kind of transformational journey. Our team has grown, and we've really been partnering with our people business partners and other stakeholders within the business to kind of try to understand where we have gaps in our compensation practices today and how we can also start to leverage AI a little bit more. So over the last year, I think our team has really been trying to get up to speed with what capabilities there are available to us through our current vendors and technologies that we have, but also getting familiar with what's available to us via Copilot or other AI tools and seeing how we can leverage those to continue to keep up with what's going on in the world. And AI is a big part of that right now. And we're really excited with where we're headed. And there are many gaps that we're kind of navigating right now. And similar to what Jennifer said, we have some opportunity to better manage compensation in general, but also I think it's more about scaling and ensuring that we're able to keep up with the pace of change that we're experiencing.
So let me dive deeper into one of the things you said at the beginning there. You talked about, I think I heard you say, like, your HRBPs are bringing some of these sorts of things and your team has to figure out, like, translate that into what can we do about it? Is that fair? Like, that's what you're saying. Well, what those conversations, like, any themes around that? Is there like, hey, we're hearing about this one thing over and over, or is it just kind of a board?
A lot of it, right, has to do with market competitiveness is a big one. Like, we're always in that, right? We're always trying to chase down how to remain competitive, but also balance that, what the employees' needs are and what the business needs are, and of course, budget, right? And that's a big one with market competitiveness. I think that the other thing is, as it relates to career development is a big one. And although compensation isn't like a primary owner of career development, it is a very impactful part of career development because that is one of the things that employees expect as they are developing. So I think it's just a natural conversation that arises there. Also, especially with our global partners, we operate in Europe. So we're partnering a lot on the EU Pay Transparency Directive right now and trying to ensure compliance there. And that's been a journey because there's, I think, right now, a lot that is still unknown and very vague as it relates to that. And we're just trying to keep up with whatever's coming out there.
I was curious about that piece, because it tied back to some of what we're saying around or Jennifer was saying around the pre-active to proactive. A part of that is you have this front line of HR business partners who are hearing these conversations and filtering those back to, okay, someone's got to actually make a decision and then figure out how we're going to share that back to the front of those lines and have those conversations with those employees at the individual contributor level and can just keep the ball moving basically for those people. So I was curious about that piece, that translation part of it, because for people who are out there listening, who are maybe they aren't an HR business partner and they're hearing those things and like, okay, what do I do with this? Well, there you go. There's a great story, a great example of how the team's doing it at Assurant, and you can do the same sort of thing, bringing that back and forth and using it to make change in a positive sort of way with all the guardrails, limitations, like you mentioned, lots of different things out there. Coming back to you, Jennifer. So that was one of your big wins, the things you're celebrating, the things you're proud of. What is one of the challenges that your team is facing when it comes to comp right now?
Oh, I think Megan hit on it. But I'm going to ask the rhetorical question. Have you ever heard the story that compensation can solve everything? Okay, so let me elaborate on this. The biggest challenge is managing the tension between speed and sustainability. So operational leaders are often solving in real time, immediate staffing or retention issues. I mean, think about it. We're in healthcare, right? Patient care is on the line. And compensation becomes that fastest lever to pull. It's like, we need another staff person in. Let's give them compensation. Let's give them money. But without governance, those one-off decisions create those long-term ripple effects. So compression, inequity, that's precedence that is hard to unwind. Sometimes we just need to take that moment and let it be painful for the organization. Let it be painful for what I call the compensation pressure triangle. And the compensation pressure triangle to me is really the coworker, the leader, and the compensation system itself, or the system itself. So the challenge isn't just what do we pay? It's how do we ensure every pay decision holds up over time, right? And that requires shifting the mindset from solving individual problems to managing a system of decisions. And that's one of the things that we're really focused on, trying to ensure that our leaders come along the journey with us, shifting that mindset. And that's our biggest challenge.
I like the triangle there. That's a great way to think about that one. The other part, comp can solve everything. I feel like you see that in other areas too. Like that's a problem. Well, we need more training. Like maybe we don't need any training. They're just unmotivated. Or maybe we don't need training. They're just too busy. They can't do the thing, right? Comp does not solve everything. And even when you can solve the problem today, you're creating all the future problems for yourself as well. I think that's a really great call out there. And you mentioned that you and the team are thinking about things like the EU Pay Transparency Act, some of the other challenges around pay transparency as one of your issues, challenges, things that you are trying to solve for right now. Anything else that's coming up as a challenge or something that's top of mind for you as you're thinking about the sort of big things out in front of you and the team?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it goes alongside a lot of what Jennifer says, and then also these bigger things. I think that the hardest thing that we do is there is still everything that has to happen day in and day out, and ensuring that we are, again, juggling and meeting all of those needs while also trying to improve and keep up with everything that is evolving in our space.
It's like, can I give you a second full-time job, please? And just layer them your other one, where it's just keep up
Yeah.
what you're doing right now, but also we're going to throw some extra things on top of that and just see how you pull your hair out, essentially, to feel times that level of difficulty and stress. Yeah. I'm hearing that all the time. Again, that came up a few weeks ago at I told this before we started recording. So I was talking to someone and they told me that like HR is harder now than it's ever been, it feels like. And it's ever around like, oh yeah, I can agree with that. And so we're in this really tough time where the expectations are incredibly high. The resourcing, strangely, is not always at that same level. So they want a lot, but they're not willing to support at that level from a business perspective sometimes. So I've heard you bring this up a couple of times, Jennifer. You talked about governance as a strategy, as an approach, as a priority for you and the team. You gave a great example of it a minute ago about having some governance in place helps you prevent that. Oh, well, it's just this one time. We're going to make this change just this one time, just one exception, knowing that a year from now, we're going to have 3 people on the team who are thinking about quitting because they're frustrated when they find out about that issue that came up, about pay compression, stuff like that. So talk about how we can create some governance around comp decisions that balance that triangle you were talking about, the system, the leader, the people, keeping all those things in balance, because that's not an easy thing to do. Any advice or anything that you've seen to be effective at helping to make that happen?
Yeah, absolutely. And let me go back to that triangle for just a moment, because every situation, every compensation situation sits within that triangle, and HR leadership or HR balances all 3. They can't let one situation get away from the other. Otherwise, you'd have an obtuse or an acute triangle if you go back to your geometry days. Well, strong compensation governance isn't about just saying no. It's about creating clarity, consistency, and trust in how decisions are made. That trust is like the biggest key factor that we found over the years. So from a business perspective, governance ensures like we're cost effective, we're compliant, we're making decisions that scale. From a workforce perspective, it ensures fairness, transparency, consistency. So coworkers understand that pay decisions aren't arbitrary. So the balance comes from what I like to call the compensation framework, and it has a few key principles. So you create that clear philosophy and that strategy that anchors your decisions. It aims what you do. It's what the organization does. It's the foundation to everything. And then you define those guardrails and policies and procedures. So how decisions are made, what's allowed and when, where is flexibility? Because remember, compensation can be gray. And then you have to look at the next key principle is consistent application, right? across the system, not just leader to leader interpretation. And leaders interpret a lot when it comes to compensation because you can make it very gray. And then you look at disciplined exception management, right? Because exceptions aren't free, they create precedent. So at the end of the day, governance builds that credibility. That credibility is what allows leaders and coworkers to trust the system. And even when every individual outcome isn't exactly what they hope for, you still have that credibility and that trust to fall back on. And hopefully that builds your governance structure into a strong foundation for your organization.
So I'm over here taking notes. By the way, if you see me like looking away, I'm taking a ton of notes because I'm learning from this as well as the audiences out there. I flipped over here and I saw Megan when she was talking about trust. You were like, oh yeah, like trust was a big thing. So talk about what you were thinking when she mentioned that.
I mean, I think what is so important is that when people think about governance, right, they immediately think about restriction and the path to no, right? Like that's what a lot of people think. But really, it should be, like Jennifer said, the clarity on the path to yes. And we have to be very clear about what are the boundaries that we want to set with governance? What are we asking for? And again, is it balancing the needs of the business? And is it ensuring that leaders and employees can understand the governance model as well? Because again, like Jennifer said, it is about trust in the end. It's all about building that trust and ensuring that it's a governance model that everyone can understand too.
I like that it's not a no, it's like you say clarity on the path to yes, I think was the exact you like, I think brilliant. I love that. When I was an HR leader, I reported to our CEO, and one of the things he loved to say was, tell me how we can, not why we can't. We could spend the entire time we have as a leadership team going through all the reasons why it will not work. And he said, that's not a good use of our time. Tell me how we can, and then we can make a decision within what boundaries are there from a budget perspective, from a compliance perspective, from a risk perspective. I'll make a decision on that, but I have to know how we can do it, not the reasons why we can't. I feel like that's what you're sort of getting to there, where we talked about there's a cost to the exceptions. I love that picture that you paint there, because it feels like in the moment, there's no cost. Humans really bad at planning out and seeing what this challenge is. The reason why we see it and why people here listening in the audience, why they see it, is because we've been the ones trying to manage the fallout after that and trying to put the pieces back together, because someone's angry, someone's upset, someone's frustrated, someone threatened to leave potentially because exception happens. And at the moment that happened, the other person that helped to push that forward didn't foresee that at all, right? They didn't even think that was going to come to be. Okay. All right. I'm wrapping my brain around all these different things here. I'm loving this so much. I did not think, I'll be honest, I did not think that governance was going to be the most exciting part of my day to day. And yet here we are having some fun around this. So I kind of gave some guesses there around, I'll skip that part. We'll go back to this other part.
I was going to add one thing, Ben. I mean, I think that a lot of times to what Jennifer was saying around there being a cost to all these exceptions, I think that oftentimes our stakeholders that we interact with do not quite see the depth and the breadth of the decisions that they're making and understand the full impact there. And what I'm referring to specifically, and as it relates to pay equity or even pay comparison or those types of decisions, and they do have longer term impact. And that's where things get to be a little bit challenging, especially if you are a leader, right? And you have concerns and you're wanting to retain and you're wanting to do things. There are different levers that can be pulled. And I think that oftentimes leaders think of one lever and that can be the one lever that really causes the most issues. So how do you get creative? And a lot of people don't think that there's creativity that happens in compensation, but holy moly, do we have to get creative in this job often. And I don't know, when you think about comp, it doesn't seem like there's anything super magical about it that can happen. But I mean, you're really navigating a lot of nuanced situations, and the partnership is incredibly important that you have with those leaders and with HR while you're navigating those. Because again, It's one of the things that we've talked about on my team too, that AI is going to struggle with, is being able to handle the nuance that comes with compensation. And again, it's an exciting thing, but I think that the depth and breadth that we experience every day and what we're trying to solve for, I don't know that anybody can fully wrap their head around it.
I feel like I've said this before, but we think about comp as a science, and like all the numbers, the data, that part of it is, there's a lot of art in the how it gets done, in the how we solve problems, and the range of issues and problems. That's one of those things that no one could predict. Some of the things that pop up that a comp professional, a comp team, a comp leader, or one of our friends out there that puts the comp hat on once in a while as an HR manager, trying to keep all the things going. Like those sorts of things that pop up, you couldn't predict some of those sorts of things. So to be creative, to be able to respond quickly, that is a strength and a skill. And it's one of the things that sets apart the people who are really good at this work and the ones who maybe are more short-sighted or more mature, struggle long-term because maybe they let those people push that exception through thinking it's just this one time, or they let that sort of thing slide, or they don't hold to their beliefs on that sort of thing, that philosophy that anchors all the rest of this. And because in the moment, it's challenging to do that. It's hard. I was going to actually ask a question around that piece, if you don't mind, before we move on to the next question, because I'm curious. I had a friend, let me give you a quick story, and then I want to shift it to comp because around hiring, but I think it matters here. One of my friends used to be the head of hiring for H&R Block. And so they did hiring for tax professionals. And she said she'd have managers come to her and say, hey, we need 20 people to start next Tuesday. And said, well, I don't realize that to get 20 people, I need 150 resumes or whatever the number is to be able to get whittled down to that. And I need this much lead time to screen and find the right people. So the next time someone came to her, she said, okay, let me show you what this looks like. She showed them a hiring funnel. It said, to get this many at the end, it takes this many at the beginning and this much time to get there. And that changed every conversation after that, because that manager knew that asking for this thing was going to take this much time and they were going to require the effort. And so I'm wondering if there's a parallel to that in the world of comp, where how do we level set with some of these managers? Maybe you have one who's always pushing for, yeah, I know we're at 50%, 50 percentile, but like they're always pushing for 75th, or as an example, or they're always pushing to go beyond the budget, or they're always trying to push the boundaries. Is there a way for us to show them something, explain this in a way that helps them understand it? I'm not sure if there is, but I'm gonna just kind of open the floor there. Either one of you have any ideas on how we can try to help them understand is doing this today is going to lead to potentially this negative outcome later? Any thought?
Yeah, I think that what we tend to do with this is bringing data, right? I mean, I think that's the most impactful thing and eye-opening thing that we do is bring data with us to the conversation to show them what the potential results of their decision is, right? Like ultimately, if you're going to hire somebody that's going to be at the max end of a range, then it could result in a couple of different things, right? It could cause pay inequities. It can cause compression. It can also cause later down the road, especially if you have a company that is pay for performance. And we do look at where people sit in the range against performance, and they could end up getting a red circle because they're already maxed out, right? And so then you're having to look at other alternatives to try to pay them for their performance outside of a base salary increase. And I think the other thing too, and when I mentioned levers earlier, it's not just about that base salary, but what other levers can we pull to be competitive in a role if we're trying to hire somebody new. And I would say on the other end of that too, we also occasionally see leaders that are not aligned with what we've proposed. And this happened at really any company I've been with. You'll see we don't have the budget for this. Well, the job description is written this way, and this is what our guidance is based off of this data. And this is what you're potentially going to have to pay for the type of talent that you're looking for, right? And I think that's one thing that a lot of leaders and employees even might not think about as much, is that especially when it comes to like pay transparency, you're looking at a range, you're trying to operate within the range. It's not always going to be that it's going to be the max end of that range. It could be the lower end of that range. And even with that, we have a hard time getting leaders to navigate within the budget, or our recommendations always aligning with their budget. And ultimately it's going to result in you get what you pay for. And so if you're looking for some really strong talent that's going to align, then, our recommendations are going to be closer to what market is recommending for that.
And let me jump in on what Megan just said, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
So we think of compensation as kind of like that iceberg, right? It's the Titanic navigating towards the iceberg. You got above the visible issues, the candidate pressure, the retention concern, the market adjustment request, the road losing people. And below the surface, you really have that job structure misalignment, internal equity compression, inconsistent pay practice application, prior exceptions, lack of governance, role scope creep. Most compensation problems are not pay problems. They're structure problems, they're governance problems, they're consistency problems. So one of the things that I really strive for when I look at compensation is ensuring everybody understands we price roles, not people. And I have a graphic, which it has money on one side, it has job description on the other side. It's that balance. It's like a balance of scale. And then you've got your org chart in the center. You're trying to balance what roles does this organization need? What do these roles garner in wages? And then putting it to that org structure in the middle. So it's almost like when you talk to a leader, you need to have them take that person out of the role. Because if you bring somebody in at max, or you bring somebody in even at the 50th percentile, who perhaps doesn't have any experience, it can cost, depending upon the size of your organization, millions of dollars to fix. So when evaluating those compensation decisions, I really strive to go to the leaders and say, if this role were vacant, how would we price it? If a different person held this role, would the decision change? And does this align with similar roles across our system? So again, it goes back to that compensation is determined by roles, level of accountability, market alignment, internal equity. Data is a number that you bring into the whole entire decision, but the organization then makes the decision using all of that, role, scope, level, so on and so forth. And we need to take out the individual negotiation. We need to take out the urgency. We need to take out those personal circumstances and really go back to we price role, not people. Because guess what? Compensation decisions today, or those exceptions, don't stay isolated. They become expectations.
Yeah. And I think where that gets to be sometimes a bit challenging, because we are such data-driven people, and on the front line though, with these leaders, like, it does become very personal. And so coming to with the problems that they're trying to solve for, it does tend to get a little bit personal at that point. And it, I think, can be challenging for leaders to navigate a framework that maybe they don't fully understand too. And so us being prepared to be able to explain that to them is definitely a benefit, going and prepare, right, for those conversations.
Absolutely.
Wow. So much good stuff in this last little bit of the conversation. I'm enjoying this. Like, we don't price people, we price jobs, right? Thinking about those sorts of things. Megan, you talked about some really intriguing parts of that decision-making process and some of the things wrapped around that. And again, we get the emotions, all that wrapped into it. So many pieces here in this. There was a story I told last year at an event, and it freaks people out. So I like telling it for that reason a little bit. But there's a company out there, a big enterprise company, that uses an AI tool that looks at person by person and tries to set a pay rate just high enough so that Ben won't leave, or just high enough so that Megan won't leave, but not high enough that they're wasting any extra margin on that person. And like, that is actually seeing people as a number in the worst possible way. And again, it creeps. None of us would sign up for that willingly. I don't feel like that's not a way to respect the contributions people are making to the organization. And so like, that sort of thing is creepy and it's out there. But what I hear both of you talking about, really advocating for, let's do this in a fair way that sees people, that understands the value each of their skills brings, that understands what our company's trying to accomplish, right? All those sorts of things. Jennifer, in your case, like, what do our patients need, and how do we make sure the right person with the right skills is there to get that for that patient? Right. Like, those sorts of things are top of mind for all of us as we're thinking about this. So I'm going to let you two have a little fun here. So I always have a magic wand. It never is here when I actually need it. Darn it. Let's say we get to wave magic wands. Jennifer, I'm going to start with you. What is one thing that you would change about comp as it is. It could be any number of things. And we do have a time limit, so we don't have 3 hours for the answer here, but we can have some fun with this one. But what be the one thing that you would change first if you had a magic wand when it comes to comp?
Okay, so we're going to go into theoretical, like best wish scenario, right? I would change how compensation is perceived.
Okay.
But so from negotiation or a moment in time to system decisions that build on each other. So too often compensation is viewed as the what can I get right now? We've talked about this through this whole entire conversation. But in reality, every pay decision becomes the baseline for the next one, right? So if leaders consistently ask, what precedent does this set before making a decision, we would avoid a significant amount of inequity compression and rework. That shift from short-term fixes to long-term system thinking would fundamentally change how compensation operates in most organizations. So going back to my magic wand, it's not something like that you could think of as tangible. It's not like I want to add this to compensation or this piece. It's I would change how compensation is perceived.
Excellent. When you started there, I thought you were going to say like how compensation as a function is perceived, but it's really about like the practice of it, the process of it, how this, like every little decision is part of a bigger picture we're painting. And hey, you're going to go color outside the lines, it's going to mess up the rest of the picture.
Yeah.
Better
Well,
than juggling.
And just to take 2 more seconds, think of compensation because I'm a musician in another life. And I think of compensation like it's composing a symphony, right? So you've got the base pay is like the percussion, it's the beat, it's the foundation. The strings are some of the nuances. The brass may be an incentive sprinkled in here and there. But if one component of that symphony is misaligned, you've got that sound that just makes you twinge. Think about like when you hear those fire alarms going off, you want to run out of the building. So compensation is like composing a symphony. We need to change how the whole entire effort is perceived, not just the function. I mean, we're the steward. We are the stewards of the function, yes, but we want to change. I would like to change how compensation is perceived.
I like that one. All right, Megan, what do you have for us?
So I think mine has to do with survey data and honestly comp data in general. And I know this is pretty interesting, but I would like there to be more consistency across surveys as far as like leveling guidance goes, because it can be extremely challenging, especially if you have multiple surveys, to navigate the nuances in between surveys. But I would also say how the market data is perceived against crowdsourced data, because a lot of times employees or candidates or even managers will go out and do a quick search and they're going to see some sort of crowdsourced data. And that is not the same as market data. And that is not the same as having full company participation and the full picture. It's one view and it does not take into consideration leveling or like the nuances that could take place within that job or even within the industry. So I think that would be the other thing. If I could wave my magic wand, I would kind of steer folks away from doing that. I understand why, because there's not a lot out there for anyone else to look at. So I can appreciate that to an extent, but I think those would be the 2 things.
I can see that. And again, you talked about sort of 2 pieces of it, both like consistency for us as a function, as a profession of years to make sure that we're getting the same thing here as we're getting there. But also on the other side of that equation, that the workforce is not scouring the internet for shady sources and then showing up and saying, why are not paying? Well, come on, Jennifer, you're not doing it right. Yeah, this has been so fun, but we do have other things to get to here in the stream. So if the audience wants to reach out, I'll make sure you get both of your handles into the chat there so the audience can reach out, connect, can follow. Thank you again to each of you for spending some time with us, for sharing your hearts on this, like your passion around this, and some of the strategies and ideas that I know the audience, really good takeaways and practical ideas shared in today's conversation. To all the rest of you out there, stay tuned for more good stuff coming right up.
All right. Awesome. That was incredible. A few highlights. There was a lot of comments out there, but having that clarity on the path to yes was something that stuck out to me. The other one that really stuck out that Jennifer said was exceptions aren't free. They set their precedent. And so Great conversation on the opening panel. Real quick, I want to jump into one of our live Man on the Street videos that Ben has done with Lexi. I believe this is going to be good. So real quickly, just a really quick 45-second Man on the Street. I think you'll love this. Here's Lexi and Ben.
Hey, what do you think is the biggest problem that compensation leaders are trying to solve right now?
Okay, well, you can't leave anything world at work without talking about AI. So I feel like AI is the buzzword. AI is actually, I feel like, showing up more than ever. But I feel like what comp leaders are trying to turn it into is like, what is the hype versus what is the reality, and how do I put it into my day-to-day? And then how do I go and explain it in a way to the business or to the people that I'm working with or to those around me? That I feel like is one of the biggest challenges, outside of all the normal pain points too.
All the normal pain points.
Yeah.
There are other things besides being AI experts?
A little bit of data, a little bit of explaining budgets, a little bit of explaining increases, you know, those things. That's the day job.
Trying to make all the things run on time. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Awesome. So that was real quick. I'm going to bring Ben back up here with us, and he's joining us live at PayScale. How you doing, my friend?
Hey, George. So glad to be here. And man, we're having a great time. Such great conversation there between Jennifer and Megan, really talking about some of the ways that comp can deliver real value. And I'm excited to be here with a friend. George, I'm going to chat with Ruth for a little bit. We'll bring you back towards the end after I boot her off the virtual stage here, and then we'll wrap up for the day. So for all of you out there, this is a good friend of mine, Ruth Thomas from PayScale. Ruth, glad to be here with you.
Great to be here as well. So it's great that you're taking over our stand here.
You know what? This little corner of the world is all mine for just a little while. So before we get into some of the fun conversation we're going to have, would you take a minute and tell the audience more about who you are and what you do, please?
Yes, I'm Ruth Thomas. I'm Chief Compensation Strategist here at PayScale. Also lead the marketing teams. Background, as you know, Ben, is as a practitioner, long-time international practitioner of compensation, and then have been in this crazy space of HR tech for probably about 15 years. So founded my own company, which we sold to PayScale in 2021. Yes. And enjoying the journey still here with PayScale. Yeah.
So I want all of you to have to hear this. So the things that go on behind the scenes before we actually come on camera, she's like, I would have listened to your accent, Ben. I love your accent. And I'll let you, but I always love a chance to talk to Ruth because I feel more cultured myself. I feel very
good contrast of accents going on here.
Good blend here.
Yeah.
So we are here in San Antonio. We're at World at Work Total Rewards. And I don't know about you, I've had so many good conversations already with different people. We're with what I would argue are some of the world's most forward-thinking compensation leaders. Some of the questions that I'm getting are wild. I'm like, I don't even know the answer to some of those, but I'm going to go find out. What are some of the things that you're hearing in your conversations here in the hallways, after your sessions when you're speaking, those Q&As? What are some of the things that are coming up over and over?
Quite a lot. Obviously AI, let's start off there. I just think the group of compensation professionals that are here, their understanding of AI has just moved on so much in 12 months. And so I think I can see everybody's at the stage where they're really trying to work out, how to deploy it, or they're asking, by their executives to deploy it. So I can really see the journey. And then obviously, from a vendor perspective, our product looks completely different than it did 12 months ago. And we're now, like, by Q3, all our development will be done by AI, which just increases the pace of, the functionality that we're releasing. So for the first time in my 15 years creating HR tech, we're almost managing to create tech as the issues are happening, as these new issues are arising, rather than going, oh, well, that'll come out in 12 months time or something like that. So it's incredibly exciting. But yeah, obviously AI is a theme. You can see it all around, and a lot of discussions going on around that.
Yes, absolutely. Well, that idea that we're able to respond so quickly, to me, it's interesting. That's one of the things I was talking to someone yesterday. I'm looking at, so all of you can't see this, but I can see like 15, 20 different companies right now that are making that technology you just talked about. And one of the things that PayScale is doing that feels a little bit unique to me is, what are the problems you're dealing with, all of you out there that are in HR, that are in comp, what are those issues and problems? Okay, how do we solve that one? How to make that a little bit less frustrating? No one's going to be probably overjoyed when they're building their ranges, but can make it a little bit less frustrating, a little bit easier, a little bit smoother, or more confident, right? Those sorts of things to me are the real challenges that, hey, let's get a flashy chatbot that answers all your questions, but it doesn't actually address those things. And right, so some people have a different approach to that, and I've I've appreciated that approach that y'all taken.
Yeah, we thought long and hard about how to deploy, AI through our solutions, and it shows up in many different places. What else have I seen? The whole real-time compensation, compensation no longer being an annual process. Pace of business is moving so quickly. Compensation decisions are happening every day, and many of the tools and like the data surveys that compensation pros have had to work with really built for annual cycles, and that's not going to stand the test of time. So that's another observation that I've seen while we're here.
Have you ever heard a business leader come and say, "Hey, Ruth, I want you to tell me what the pay was for this job last year"? They're like, what does this person get paid now? They want to know right now. So that's a difficulty. Okay. So the AI is moving faster. So the technology piece, the data are moving faster. And so let's talk about the people side of that a little bit, right? What about the comp leaders? Like, what are they having to build new skills? Or are they having to have new competencies in order to meet that need?
Well, I think the biggest shift, which we've been thinking about here at PayScale, is the democratization of compensation intelligence or compensation information to people across the organization. I mean, when I did compensation, I worked in investment banking. There was a lot of money swirling around. I never wanted anyone to know what I was doing. I never wanted anyone to know I was the head of compensation. I was hidden in a back room, and that has changed obviously so much with pay transparency. Comp no longer really just own compensation. We're really seeing that to be successful in your compensation strategy, it needs to be owned across the business, the managers who are communicating, the employees who are receiving that information, and the executives who are really starting to think about compensation as a powerful strategic lever for them.
So you did not get to hear the panel yet. You'll have to go back and watch that. It was so good. But Jennifer talked about one of her things that guides her as a leader, as a compensation leader, is she sees it as stewardship, right? Are we stewarding this resource for the business in the best possible way? I don't own it, as you said, but it's my job to manage it to the best of the ability that I have and try to make the most of it. And so I thought that's a really good tie there. See, I love how things tie together, even when all of our guests don't know the same sorts of things. So one of the things I wanted to ask you about specifically is, I know that PayScale's always trying to figure out what's happening next. And so y'all did some research recently on like what's happening for the 26 annual cycle. What's it looking like? So I know the leaders out there are probably getting that question from their own leadership. Hey, what are we going to do this year? What's the numbers looking like? So anything you can share there that might help them?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we do 2 health checks a year in terms of what merit budgets are going to be. So we will be just kicking off our mid-year health check, the salary budget survey, where we'll be asking you all, like, what are you planning to do for merit? Or what did you pay for merit this year in 26? And what are you planning for next year? The data that we had coming into the year from our compensation best practice research was that, on average, merit increases were going to be 3.5%. And then a big storyline that we saw circulating around was peanut butter pay, which was a fun headline. But what came out in our compensation research was that nearly half of organizations this year were planning to do across the board increases, and that was they were either doing it, they were implementing it, or they were thinking about doing it, which we were surprised that those numbers were so high, but maybe a reflection of limited merit budgets this year. 3.5% is the lowest we've seen for a few years, not the lowest ever, because it used to be 3% all the time. Yes. But yeah, so the peanut butter story was very interesting.
So peanut butter spread, like everyone gets the same amount, right? Yeah. It's the same spread across all of that. So it was funny because when the story came out, I was like, somebody else knows that metaphor, because I shared it with someone and they gave me this strange look. Like I said, that's the peanut butter spread approach, and they said, what does that mean? And I said, well, that means everybody gets the same thing. Like, I never heard that. So I didn't realize that no one else knew that. And when I saw it, it's like, okay, we're on the same page here. So let's say a company that's on their radar. They're thinking about that. One of the things that brings up for me is, what does that mean when it comes to driving behaviors or pay for performance? What does that mean for your top performers if we say, hey, we're going to kind of spread it all out to everybody? Are there negative downsides to that?
We obviously don't recommend it as best practice, because you will start to have issues with your top performers, as you say. And I think we flagged through the narrative around our research was that, okay, it feels like it's an employer's market at the moment, but that may shift. And when that does shift, you've got your job huggers, you've got your people who are sitting in your organization, not feeling valued, not trusting you when it comes to pay. And they will be the first people that will think about moving when and if the market switches.
So you're good at sharing data. I'll share one back with you. So we just finished a piece of research with workers recently. We compared our 24 numbers to our end of 25 numbers. And what we saw is a number of people who said they were like planning to quit their jobs in 25 was lower, but the number of people who were uncertain about their future was much higher.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so job huggers, right? They're like, there's not really a lot of opportunities out there, so I'm just going to sit and wait. But they're not committed to the company.
Yeah.
And so those are the
Absolutely.
first ones out the door when things turn around. And if employers aren't careful, right? If they just think, oh, well, they should be lucky to have a job because their managers will still say that kind of thing, we're going to lose some very good people if we're not careful.
Yeah, so I think some organisations were considering it because peanut butter pay that is because they felt it was easier to administrate, and then when you've got a smaller pot of money, is it just fairer to everybody to like give everybody the same, and then we keep everybody happy? But your problem is going to be your high performers who are going to think, well, why am I not being rewarded for the effort that I'm putting into the organisation?
Yes, you do not want to demotivate someone who is doing excellent work. So let's take a slightly different approach. I want to ask you something different, and I did not prepare you for this at all. So
okay, put me on the spot.
I'm so glad that you're here, Ruth. My goodness, this is great. Let's see if we're still friends after this. Now, I want to hear from you. There are people that are listening here. Some of those people are the ones that are doing the merit pieces and doing the operational parts of comp. There are other people here that are thinking about, how do I make this make sense to our leadership team? How do I convey it is important to have this specific strategy versus that one? How do we think about, and how do they advocate for a certain approach to comp or show the value comp brings to the table?
Yeah.
I asked it like 3 different ways, but hopefully you got the gist of it.
Well, this is I do a lot of thought leadership around compensation. And one story I've been telling for a long time is that we should not be managing compensation as a cost. We should be managing compensation as an investment. And it's a very different way of thinking. And interestingly, now we're seeing organizations under pressure to prove productivity, profitability, and growth. And now we're suddenly seeing like the CFOs in organizations waking up to the potential of compensation as a strategic lever. They're looking at everything they can within their organizations to say, where can we cut costs? How can we drive productivity? And they're suddenly coming around to compensation and going, well, let's just stop looking at it as a cost. Let's stop thinking about controlling budgets. What's the potential? Like, what could we drive in terms of behaviors, in terms of business outcomes, if we thought about compensation a little differently? And that's exciting.
Do you think the average HR leader is able to do that? Or is ready to do that?
I'd say 50-50.
Okay.
I hear good practice.
I was not good at it when I started.
Yeah,
okay, so you hear me confess a lot. Like,
Yeah.
I was not good at it when I started. I had to learn that skill because I did it wrong the first couple times.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if that's a common ability. Like, this is what you got to do. And there are people that hear that and like, okay, good, got that checked. And other people that hear that and think, wow, that seems like a really big step from where
Just
I am.
like working with your business leaders, understanding, where are you expecting business outcomes to be this year? What talent are we expecting to deliver those business outcomes? And then how are we shaping the compensation for those critical talent segments? So it's just like following that path to say, okay, now we're really starting to think about comp as a lever for driving business outcomes. I think we've talked a lot about having a compensation philosophy, and it's been very out of the box. We attract, retain, motivate staff, but it was literally out of the box without really thinking about how are we driving real business outcomes.
Well, to me, one of the fun things about the industry in the last few years, talking more about things like skills, breaking jobs down to specific things, is the good news with that is I don't want just a marketing assistant or a software engineer just in job title only. They have to do these key things because those generate new value for the business.
Yeah.
Like getting specific on those sorts of behaviors, and of all the different levers we can pull, comp is one of the ones that feels very close to me to say, oh, I need Ruth to do more of A.
Yeah.
Well, then I'm gonna make sure she sees this line of sight between her compensation and A, and that gets you more of those
and
things.
We've been talking about skills-based pay for a very long time. I think we're now just starting to get into the phase where it will actually happen because people are now getting better at skill definition within the organization. And then if we take that one step further, I had a few interesting conversations with people here around outputs. Like, rather than measuring skills as the input for a job, how are we going to measure the output in terms of and reward for output when it comes to people's performance, and much more focus on outcomes rather than outcomes. And that will be an area of focus in the future as well, I think.
There was a great book written years ago that I actually pulled out during the whole pandemic thing because people suddenly had to be remote and didn't know how to manage that. And the book is called Why Work Sucks. Okay. It was written by this pair of ladies that worked at Best Buy years ago when they put this thing in called a results only work environment. And essentially all that mattered were the results in your job. And in order for them to be successful, the first thing they did was they defined for every single job, what are the results that matter for that job? And it created a very fundamentally different culture there where, well, that person showed up and they sat in their desk for 10 hours and they went home, but did they get the result done? That always was the question. And so I love that approach there. And that trees up to all the conversation we've had about the importance of incentivizing our high performers to have the right behaviors, about making decisions to our leadership. Or do we know what those behaviors and skills are? Like all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. So I think the good thing is that, you know, the AI that's coming into the solutions that Comp and HR are using is going to make them incredibly more efficient because a lot of the very heavy manual workflows that we used to do are now being automated. And so they are going to have this time to start thinking about some of this more advanced kind of thinking about compensation and how we do deploy some of this stuff.
I'm going to miss my password protected spreadsheets, Ruth. I mean, goodness gracious. That takes me way back. I'm getting like cold sweats over here. All right. One of the questions I asked our panelists that was a lot of fun for them, and I'm going to throw it to you too, was let's say we had a magic wand. You could wave that around and you could change something about compensation as it is. What is the thing you would change and why?
I think actually making skills-based pay happen. You know, as I said, we've been talking
making
about
it real.
Yeah, making it real. But it's challenging because you've got to be able to define what skills are first, and then you can start to relate value to them. And I think we're very close to it, but that is the next shift I would like to see happening in compensation. I think really, yeah.
So if we could wave the magic wand and tap it on some of our friends over here who are on the data team for pay scale, maybe that gets a little bit closer.
Well, we are bringing in skills-based data for the first time into the solutions in this half. So, So
I didn't jump up and down, but I almost did. I had to restrain myself from jumping up and down on that one. So such a great conversation. Okay. We actually have, I believe George has a QR code that he can share here on screen so people can scan it to know more about pay scale. Anything else that you want to give us a preview of that's coming down the line from the team? Any of the research, anything else that you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, well, we've been talking about compensation intelligence, but we've been talking about compensation intelligence for all. So I think where we're thinking about supporting comp pros and HR professionals is that, everybody across the organization, as I said earlier, needs to be able to make pay decisions. And so we're trying to push compensation intelligence to TAs, so that that relationship between the TA and the comp person works, and no one's denigrating the pay governance structures. And then we're also thinking about how we can provide insights to executives. So that's through our new Compass product, where we have this new executive dashboard where they're not benchmarking jobs, they're actually benchmarking their compensation strategy. So we're really thinking multi-persona, how can we surface insights about compensation to the different people that now really have a stakeholder interest in making sure that that's used as powerfully as possible.
That excites me on so many levels. I love it, right?
I think we're going to show you some of it later, aren't we?
I think I'm actually going to get a front row seat to see some of the stuff happening. And again, you can scan the QR code there. You can check out payscale.com as well to learn more about some of the good things that the team is doing there. Ruth, thank you for spending some time with me. This has been such a joy. I love it. Any chance I get to have a chat with you, I always learn something new, and I always walk away
likewise
feeling a little bit more informed and a little bit more cultured anyway. So appreciate you for joining us, for hanging out.
Yeah, and if anyone here is at World at Work, do come and see us, say hello. We would love to have a conversation with you.
Yes, absolutely. You can see the fun back, look for this logo, look for this color. You can get right over there to them. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. All right, to all of you out there, I'm going to call George back up, and we'll do some wrap up today. Actually, we got a little extra time, George, which is awesome. So, any standout bits from you there from the conversation with Ruth that you were curious about, or were you working on getting prizes for all of our awesome guests that are hanging out there?
Yeah, I was doing a little bit of both, and I was finding balance here. And realizing as we do these, it's been 6 years now. We're celebrating our 6-year anniversary. I don't know if you remember that, David. 6-year anniversary this month, buddy. All the way back to COVID. And I'm thinking in my head, how did Ben do this for 5 days, 5 hours at HR Summer School the first year, balancing all those things? But some of the things that kind of pop up, Ben, and I, as George does, if you don't mind, I do want to share some of the things that I heard today, because I don't feel like it will be right if I didn't have a acronym. So as we're listening both to the panel, then also to Miss Ruth in that conversation, 4 things really popped up in the conversations and in the chat. And it was built around the clarity. It was built around ownership. It was built around that meaning. We talk a lot about that, Ben, where like we talk about human first, but what does that really mean? What does it mean to say that the future is human in the world of technology and AI, and then personalization? So when we were talking about, the clarity aspect, how compensation should never feel like a mystery, right? Leaders need to be able to create trust. That transparency is huge when people truly understand not just how their pay decisions are made, but what's the motivating driver, what drives the growth, where do they stand in those areas. And so we talked about all the words we always hear in that. Transparency and trust is a huge deal, right? And so like the ownership aspect of it, compensation isn't just for HR's responsibility, it's a leadership behavior, right? When I think about the people that are on my team, when I think about the impact that I have as a leader, as a manager, it is our responsibility to really equip those managers to own the conversation, to deliver it. And not just to deliver it as a business mindset, but deliver with confidence, but also connection to your people. I say it all the time, leadership, direct leadership, managers, whichever word you want to use, it's your responsibility, our responsibility, not just HR, to be able to communicate those things and have that connection with your people, but also be able to speak their language. How do they communicate? How do they understand or comprehend the things that you're trying to say to them? So there's a true connection, and where that connection is, there's impact. And then obviously meaning for me, I think about this, like pay should reinforce purpose. We talk a lot about what we do and why we do it. But there has to be a connection between the purpose of why we are doing what we're doing and it not just being performance driven. I think when we look at burnout, Ben, we will look at mental health aspects of all this. Compensation takes a toll on the mental. It takes a toll on the well-being of the person. But it also takes a toll on the performance aspect of that. But if you surround that, when we say human first compensation, I believe this meaning, having a sense of meaning, having a sense of purpose, having a sense of belonging, all this is really coming together. It's not just in the culture aspects of life. It's not just in the culture and engagement aspects. It also starts right in the talent. It starts in recruiting. It starts in the comp. Because when compensation aligns with contribution and you align that with your values of your organization, when you align that with the growth, it becomes a motivator. It becomes something that's more than just external, becomes like internal, right? So more than just motivation, it's also inspirational, and not just a number. And then the last one is personalization. And this goes back to a year ago. One size fit all compensation is a thing of the past, right? And so a human first approach really considers individual drivers, life stages, and what people truly matter, because what Ben truly values, it may be different than George, and what George truly values may be different than Rose, and so on and so forth. And so we got to be able to say, hey, what does this look like? And ultimately, again, how does HR communicate those things, and managers take that baton to be able to pass it then to the employees, where they feel connected, where they feel accepted, right, respected and appreciated. They have that sense of belonging, not just the culture of the company, but why not have that alignment with the compensation as well? And so those are my four, and I figure why not make it an acronym with comp?
Why not? So, well, George, I'm reading through this and I love it. And the one that it stuck out to me is that purpose one there, because it's very easy with compensation. You heard me ask Ruth, hey, when we start doing this peanut butter spread approach to pay and everybody gets sort of the same thing or almost the same thing, that's a demotivator for people, right? We're trying to drive the right behaviors for them. And it's not just about squeezing more performance out of them or making the most, optimizing all those things. That matters. Yeah. I want people to do their best. I want to get the best work from them. I want their best effort and creativity. But if I'm just trying to make them do that stuff instead of them understanding the why behind it, then I'm going to, at some point, they're going to burn out. At some point, they're going to fail. At some point, it's not going to be enough, right? One more dollar is not enough to make them do that thing. They know there's a meaning behind that, a purpose, an impact. They know why they're doing it. That matters. You know me, I love stories. I love things like that. There's a friend of mine used to work for a company based in Huntsville, Alabama. Their CEO had built this mobile satellite communications tool that could pop up and could be used as a mobile cell tower. And after Hurricane Katrina all those years ago, he had just built this prototype in his garage. He put it in the back of his car and he drove down to Louisiana, popped this thing up, and was helping the Red Cross using that mobile satellite as a way to communicate with people, help people check in on their families, make sure that relief was being coordinated, all those things. That's not even the cool story. Okay. The cool story is every employee, when they saw this being used, like, hey, how do we get one of those? How do we make sure we have one of those? And his company started from that. Every new employee had to hear that story because they knew that I'm not just putting this bolt on here, or I'm not just selling this thing, or I'm not just servicing this piece of equipment. We are doing this so in those really hard moments when everyone's scared and worried and unsure, we are giving them a way to get a like communication lifeline in where no one else can. And so that connected, that purpose behind it, that meaning behind it, and every new person knew when they started their job, I'm not just doing task A, B, C. I don't just need these key skills. I'm not just doing these actions, but I'm doing it to make this impact and to create this opportunity. So to me, that was just an incredible story and a way to connect in to some of the other stuff you were sharing there on the purpose piece, because that matters so much. All right. Do we have some stuff to give away, or we have some people tagged to give some stuff away to? Okay, perfect. Wonderful.
You got some wonderful names.
Right.
So listen, if you see your name on the screen right now, make sure you screenshot this, but also you can email right above there. You can see email events@lhra.io. And Jill and our team will get this lovely book. We're going to get this shipped out to you here over the next few days. And so congratulations to these 6 winners: Jalinda, Lacey, Kenny, Tanisha, Rose, and Ashley. Make sure you reach out to events@lhra.io.
Yes, send Jill your address so she can make sure and get that out to you. Make sure you do. If you don't, she'll ask you for it right away.
She will. So, yep, just email comp and then send your shipping address, and we'll get that book out to you. Listen, all research and things that we are doing here at Lighthouse Research and Advisory, comp, we got so many different great things that we've done over the last couple of weeks. Did a TA research a couple of weeks ago, early in the year. So we got so many great things, all that can be accessed here. There's a QR code on your screen. There's also a QR code right above Ben's head. I'm not sure how it looks on your screen, but there is a QR code you can reach out to as well on that. All access is free. You just need to register, and we'll get that to you as well. Some exciting things. Ben, this is our last virtual event before the home run event of HR Summer School. And so I'm very excited about HR Summer School. We had so many people. I'm not sure if you ran across some of your summer school alumni there at World of Work, but I'm excited about what's to come, my friend.
Yes, absolutely. So every event you and I go to these days, we're sending photos back and forth with each other, tagging on summer school, because we meet so many great people at these different events. And so I know everybody out there, probably, if you know summer school, you're excited about that one. If you don't know it yet, imagine today and then expand that over a couple of days with a couple dozen speakers, and you'll get the level of energy that summer school has. Bigger giveaways, more giveaways, all that kind of fun stuff. It is our biggest event we do every year, and it's meant to serve the community. So we'd definitely love to have you all back for that. We'll reach out after the event's over with the link. We're getting that registration set up this week so that you can sign up for that one and be the first in line. One other thing, for any of you that commented on the LinkedIn post, I mentioned this earlier. I didn't have time to coordinate this with George for that list of giveaways, but if you commented on the LinkedIn post and shared one of the things that you would change about comp, one of the challenges you're facing, I know our good friend Allison Smart was one of those people, for example. So some of those people, we're going to reach out. We'll tag you on LinkedIn, and you are also going to be winners of the books. So for any of you that commented there, you're going to be in the running for that one. So just a call out that we didn't forget you if you did that. We just haven't had a chance to get back together. So stay tuned. We're going to tag a couple more people to get a copy of the book there. And again, share that book with somebody else if you enjoy it, and help spread that positive story of fair pay. George, I was talking to my friends here while the session was going with Megan and Jennifer. And one of the things that we're talking about is, like, we're in a really weird world right now. Like, there's stuff going on all around the world that's weird and strange, and things that people just would never have predicted, right? And so in that world, sometimes people are weird about fair pay and stuff like that. And I said, the way that I get past that whole argument, or someone wanting to be upset about that, is to go to, do you know do you want the women in your life to be underpaid compared to the men? And there's not a single person out there that would say, oh yeah, I want my mom to earn less, or my wife, or my child. I want them, my sister, right? So that's how we got around to that story, talking about how important it is to make sure that people are paid equivalent for equivalent work. And that's where that story comes in for the U.S. women's soccer team. So again, really cool, nerdy fun, and I can't wait to dive into it too. So it's going to be a blast. Anything else, George, you want to share before we wrap up today? We're a few minutes early, which almost never happens, which is great. But anything else you want to give a shout out to, or any other comments in the audience that came in earlier? I couldn't even look at them during the session because we're running this sucker remotely. So anything else you want to call out?
No, I think just as a reminder, Ben, as we've been talking about, is, obviously these strategies designing for transparency. And I shared this in the chat. The three kind of tips that people stood out with was, how do we make sure we're designing for transparency and not just accuracy? The second was empowering managers as compensation storytellers. So how do we tell this and deliver this, whether it's through spreadsheets or data and things of that nature, training managers to really connect. And the third one was, it was a personal one for me, was integrating recognition into that compensation philosophy, where we're reinforcing those behaviors and values through both formal pay, but also real-time recognition as well in that. And so one of the questions, and I believe was, what is the opinion of doing a company-wide minimum wage and that peanut butter spread, mentality, and is that utilized a lot if that's something? And so those one of those things, and I think you answered it obviously with your peanut butter spread. I'm more of a jam type of a guy than peanut butter, so but that's neither here nor there.
Peanut butter bananas, George. Peanut butter and bananas.
Peanut butter
I think is the right answer.
There you go.
We'll do that one. Yeah, every company has a slightly different approach. I think it has to come from your conversation with your leadership team. What are they trying to get across? Make sure they understand. A big part of what we all have to do as HR leaders is, here are the options, here are the pros, here are the cons, and then let them make a decision. Right? They trust us to bring them the full picture. But I mentioned this, I think, on our last live stream, George, a few weeks ago. But one of the best leaders I ever had, his phrase when we were sort of debating something or giving it reasons why something couldn't happen, he's like, listen, tell me how we can, not why we can't. How can we get this accomplished? Period. And then I'll decide as a leader, in his case, about what we're going to invest in, what we're going to make happen. And we had to just give him the option so he can make that call. And so I learned early on as an HR leader, don't show up with 10 ways it won't work. That's wasting his time and my time putting that together. Give him 2 or 3 options as the CEO that he can say, sure, that's over what we planned for budget, but we're going to have to do it because it matters to us. Yeah. Go forward, make option B happen, whatever that is. So that would be my recommendation, is to have that conversation, know what those leaders are thinking about, know what the priorities are, and make sure they understand, if we do this thing, here's the potential downside. That superstar performer we have over here, they're going to be the one most likely to quit because they're going to miss out. Maybe we do a bigger bonus for them. We adjust the budget some other way if we're having to do this compensation sort of across the board spread approach. We'll use bonus. We'll use something else as a way to influence that person, or think about, this is the year we're going to bump them up in their role, and use that as a way to try to make sure they stay engaged, stay connected. Again, I'm getting like in the nerdy comp weeds here, but that sort of thing to me is a fun conversation to have, and an opportunity for us to really flex our muscles as creative practitioners in the HR arts, if you will. So great stuff, George.
I think it goes back to just to recap that last conversation with Ruth, is it goes back to, are we paying people, or are we valuing people, right? And those words mean a lot. And it's a different perception that we have. Is like, is this a pay or is this a value? Is it, how are we recognizing and being transparent in that area? So very, very good. I just want to say special thanks. I'm giving a hand clap to all those who had joined us in the chat, and all the love that's been shown there. Once again, want to thank PayScale for sponsoring this virtual event on compensation. And thank you, Ben, for hosting this, giving us a little bit of view of the expo floor there at World at Work in beautiful San Antonio today. So just in case those people missed it, just in case you missed it, we have it back on the screen. HRCI credit and SHRM credit, 1.5 hours for those who are watching. Just in case you missed, I want to pop that up again. Ben, it's been another great virtual event with you, my friend. Safe travels. Have so much fun, learn some stuff, and can't wait for you to bring it back.
Awesome. Can't wait. For all of you out there, we appreciate you for joining us. George, love you, brother. And we will catch you all again for summer school early in June. Watch for more coming on that. Thank you.